This is Maai Perspective discussion series, where women talk Budo. Hello, thank you for joining us for the very first episode of Maai Perspective. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that my name is Cathy and I'm an Aikido practitioner at Aikido of London. You might have seen some of these lovely ladies in front of us. So the first episode, I basically wanted to take the opportunity to introduce you to the women of Aikido of London. We have Fran, Elvira and Beth here with us today. The great thing about this group in front of us is that we all have one thing in common, and that is that we all train at Aikido of London with Ismail Hasan Sensei, but we are all from different places. We all do different things. We have different backgrounds. So I think we should, let's go to Fran. I want to introduce you to Fran. Fran is the co-host of Maai Perspective. Fran, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Thank you, Cathy. Welcome to Maai Perspective. I'll be the co-host, Fran. I am from Chile. I'm 30 years old, and I started training at Aikido of London in 2018, then had a pause and went back in 2021. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, since 2016. I don't know how long is that.
And so you were training in Chile before you started training at Aikido of London?
Yes. That was 2016, actually, when I started training regularly. I tried a little bit at first when I was in my first year of uni, but then, student budgets, it wasn't very easy. So, I'm really looking forward to see what comes through our podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fran. And Elvira. Hello.
Hi, I'm Elvira and I'm from Italy, and I've been in London quite a while. I started Aikido in 2010, not on a very regular basis, on and off, but I've always enjoyed martial arts. I have a little bit of a background of karate back in Italy, but pretty much my first Aikido training session has been with Aikido of London, and I've never looked back. I've always been there.
You also do BJJ, don't you, Elvira?
Yes, I've just recently picked it up, but nothing compared to Aikido. I think where my heart is with Aikido, but I do like general martial arts in general. And I think that's because I'm a body worker. I like working with body, and I find a lot of similarity with Aikido. Like knowing yourself and how you move, and that awareness. And I think that's really, really why I like being there. So that's me for now.
Lovely,
Thank you for inviting me, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for joining. And Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth. I started Aikido when I was 16 years old, just about 6 years ago. I'm London-based, London-born, although at the moment I'm commuting from Potter's Bar most of the time because I'm at university out there. Like Elvira, kind of Aikido of London was the first place I went, and I tried Aikido, and also like Elvira, I haven't looked back since. It was a brilliant way to start, and I'm really enjoying it.
And Beth, tell everyone what you're doing in Potter's Bar.
I'm at the Royal Veterinary College in my third year of university. So
excellent. Yeah, so Beth is working very, very hard in many areas of her life at the moment, which is really awesome, admirable, I think. Good. And so actually the thing that three of us have in common is that we've always trained with Ismail Hasan Sensei from the beginning, and Fran started elsewhere before joining, which is
interesting. Interesting. And difficult to change schools, but it is.
We spoke a little bit about that. Perhaps that's something we can come on to in another episode. Perhaps I should also introduce myself. So I have been training for about 4 years. The reason I started was because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who I was telling him that I wanted to get back into karate, because I did karate when I was young. And he said, oh, why don't you come and try Aikido? I do Aikido, and why don't you come and try? Because it's also a Japanese martial art. I think you'll like it. So I came and became completely hooked. And now I'm married to my friend. you probably, who you might know, Ivan Mello. And that's it, really. I never looked back. And I think, it's kind of, I've discovered a passion that I didn't realise I could have. So, yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So I think let's get on to our first sort of topic for discussion. Obviously, I've introduced you as the women of Aikido of London. We're not the only women at the dojo, just to be clear. There are obviously more than 4, but the reason why we decided to get this group together is because we're possibly the people that are there most regularly, would you say?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, between 3 to 5 times a week, I would say, something like that. And or perhaps we've been training for a while. So in terms of our dojo, in terms of Aikido of London and the wider membership, I would say is, do you think it would be fair to say it's fairly reflective of Aikido as a whole, in the sense that there are more men than there are women? But on a day-to-day basis, in terms of the regular members, the daily classes, there's usually like a fairly even 50-50 split, I would say. And sometimes, and quite often actually, you turn up to a class and there are more women than men on the mat.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Sorry, can I add one more fact to that description?
Yeah.
I completely agree. And also another thing that's uncommon is that there are more regular women training, and it's not all only beginner women. Like we have all the range of ranges of, I don't know, experience in the dojo. So that's also an interesting thing to consider.
Absolutely, yeah.
No.
Why
Beth,
is that?
yeah.
Well, I think I've been probably the longest with Aikido of London. I can just briefly mention my experience that I came to London looking for Aikido, but I didn't know any good places where to go. And I just tried out different dojo. And I have to say, I was very naive about Aikido itself. And I didn't know what I was looking for, maybe a kind of a connection. And when I went to Aikido of London, I felt straight away I was at home. I didn't know at the time why that happened, but I just thought, yeah, I'm here, I'm going to join. And now thinking back, I'm actually remembering that there were 2 girls training, where other dojo I had tried, there were no girls. So that was really something that...
Who were the 2 girls?
I think it was Olia, which, she kind of still, and Diana. There was also another girl, which doesn't any longer train there, and another one. But there were already a few girls. And I never thought about the time, but then looking back, it's like, yeah. And somehow that has sustained. There's a lot of girls or women that have been in and out, but it's always pretty much, there's always been a very good presence of women in that dojo. Would you guys, think about that as well as I joined?
I mean, go on, Beth. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's a very similar thing. I remember the first time I kind of started going to the group classes and stuff, because I started with privates. I think Elvira was actually the first person who kind of interacted with me. She showed me how to put the uniform on. And as well, like Olia was in that class, and I think Gina, who's she lives in Spain now, was also in that class. So it was quite refreshing to see people. And obviously, I was very naive at the time, so they were wearing hakumas. Well, guys were wearing hakumas. So for me, I was like, oh, they were all at the same level, and that for me was quite really cool to see. Actually, quite a nice mix.
Fantastic. Fran, I'm thinking as well. As you did come from a different dojo, would you say it was it the same where you trained, or were you outnumbered in terms of the ratio of men to women?
No, let's say that my dojo had 40 people, not all of them showing up at the
Whoa.
same time, but around the week, because there were classes in the morning and in the evenings. So when I first entered the dojo, the first person I saw there training was a woman, was a student, and she was practicing. She was preparing for her shodan, and then I asked like, well, how much it was, and all the practical things. But then when I showed up to my first class, I was the only woman, and beginner. So I had tried Aikido in uni first, as I said, but this was my first visual class with my gi and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was quite a shock, because when I saw this woman preparing her shodan, I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea what a shodan was, to be honest, but she looked and all that. So yeah, and then regularly, there was a group of 4 to 5 women who were showing up all the time, but compared to men, um, yeah, we were probably say 20%, 25%, but never
Mhm.
50, never, ever, ever, ever. This Aikido of London is the only place where I'd seen that, to be honest.
Oh, really? And Elvira, what about in BJJ?
I've only got one experience. I haven't really done a lot in terms of like a different also training. There is a big strong community as well in BJJ, but again less. Like I would say that maybe at 25%, but it's a very busy gym. We have like a chat on WhatsApp, and it's like 38 girls only, which is a lot.
38.
Yeah.
Woo.
I know, because I was looking recently. Yeah, I mean, some of them they've left, but I think I don't know. I've never really thought about the difference between BJJ and Aikido, because, like I said, I am new. For me, I resonated with Aikido because it's a little bit more, it's non-competitive, and I found other kind of that resonated with me more than BJJ. BJJ, even though I'm not competing, but there's also the element of competition, which
Tournaments.
I'm
Formal
really
competition.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is, I think, it's a growing there, because I do follow other BJJ girls. It's also a growing, kind of like platform of female into, that kind of a martial arts. Yeah, definitely.
I agree that the competition component. Now that we're thinking of why does it happen?
Yeah.
Aikido, it's interesting because it has the opportunity to not to care about weight, how tall you are, and so on, but still gender ends up playing a role.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very interesting to come to Aikido of London and see that although there is it's high demand training, it's very demanding, it's very, you require a lot of discipline, as if you were preparing for a tournament, let's say. Yeah, I don't know, like you have all this discipline, and in this dojo, gender is, for me, I don't feel that it plays a very strong role. I feel it when other people from other dojos come, or well, I haven't been out on seminars recently, but I expect that I would feel it there as well, even if we're not a competitive martial art.
Yeah, it's funny, this thing that you say of when other people come to visit, that you perhaps feel it, because we had a seminar recently, and Fran and I we spoke a little bit afterwards, didn't we? And we said, did you train with that guy? Yeah, I did. Did you? Yeah. And we had a very, very similar experience. And
Yes.
and Elvira was watching, and you were just pissing yourself, weren't you? I mean, it was safe to say it was disappointing, actually.
Yeah.
Because I happened to know that this person, his teacher is a woman. So it was surprising and disappointing, but it was, I would say that the general feeling was of being very, very patronized. Would you agree, Fran?
I agree, and something valuable about having other women in the dojo is that you don't feel like you're the only one experiencing that. And am I crazy? Am I being exaggerated? And in my old dojo, I had my friend Isidora, and we would tell each other, like, "How did you feel?" Blah blah. But it was only the two of us. But then if you find a bigger group where you can share these things, you can also. Like balance the importance that these things have as well. So you understand that okay, there's something related to gender playing out here, uh, and you're not the only one seeing it. Elvira was seeing it from outside. The three of us felt it as we were training, and then you say, okay, I can continue with my training as it is because I don't know, I'm good at it, or I feel that I'm learning the way I'm doing it, and I don't have to care about this other person who's doesn't know me and it's treating me unfairly just because I'm a woman.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think that Aikido is the kind of. Would you agree? It's an art that anything under the surface bubbles up.
Yes.
Oh yeah, all the vulnerability. Yeah.
And so any underlying thing, any ego thing, any insecurity bubbles up, and it's interesting to.
And that's what it helps as well with, that connection with other people. It's really where everything starts to merge and you learn so much about yourself and that vulnerability and how to deal with it. Because it's not just about you, it's you and the other person. That's, I think, one thing that's really important. And I don't know why that, it's a connection talking about why so many, initially you said, why do you think there's so more many female? I don't know if we create a kind of a community in the Aikido of London, which is really kind of a strong, and also because the most only here we're like from two different countries, like Chile, Italy, and I've experienced with Aikido of London is a big variety of different countries, and that community I think is quite valuable. That could be one little element why we are still there with Aikido of London. I don't know. Would you guys go? Would you guys think?
It's like different layers of diversity, different countries, different languages, different experiences, and gender. So it's not. I maybe, and we might explore this in the future, like maybe culture and regional differences also. So if you go to another country to practice and there's only people who are very similar to each other, maybe gender has a more important part than in this context where we're super diverse, super different. I don't
I think
know.
what I was trying to convey, it was like also that community that, I've made so many friends to Aikido, and Aikido of London has been a very good platform for me where, and I've seen a lot of people coming from different countries, and it's been a very good, that community has really remained. And I remember we've always discussed also with Sensei that, how different people from all over the world, they really find a home with Aikido of London. I don't know why. I think it's because maybe the quality of the training and the quality of the teacher itself, that's definitely what is a role, and you can all see that. And if you are with somebody who travels, you look for that kind of a quality. I think we were a little bit open-minded, broadened. I don't know. That's just my personal thinking for now.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit before we recorded, didn't we, Elvira? We were saying that I personally think a really, really important factor is that our teacher, Ismail Hasan, he teaches the individual. Whether you're male or female, no matter how old or how young you are, he teaches the individual based on that person, not some idea of that person or some category that person fits into. There are differences between men and women. There are, generally speaking, men tend to be stronger. They tend to be bigger. Generally speaking, but then also within, amongst women, people have different. People are different sizes. People are more athletic. Some people are more stiff. Some people are stronger. You can't you can't affix just one attribute to a gender, and I think I mean, I think you'd agree. I don't think Sensei's ever kind of made it a big thing. Like, I treat everybody equally. You know, I've never heard him kind of say that. But it's in his action. That's the thing. It's like, you can say what you want. You can say what you want. At the end of the day, it's what you do that makes the difference. And that's him as a teacher. I think he's a very, very generous teacher. And if you want to learn, he'll teach you, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, and I think what's really nice is that attitude is then filters down to the rest of the dojo. So our senior members also share that attitude. I remember when I started, I didn't feel kind of looked down on or patronized by my age or the fact that I was a girl. They just saw me as someone who wanted to learn and was eager to learn, and that's kind of how it grew. And it's really nice that the actions of the teacher has then kind of impacted how our seniors and ourselves, we treat other people coming to the dojo, whether they're guests, whether they're starting up as beginners. So that's a really nice aspect, I think, of having a nice mixed dojo.
I agree that the culture in that sense in the dojo is it's ideal. Like, it's very nice to be in that space. Now that you mentioned, Beth, that you didn't feel patronized, when I started in this dojo, I didn't feel patronized either, but that made me very anxious because it was completely different to what I was expecting. So it was like, oh, they're taking me seriously. I have to perform.
They're expecting things from me.
Exactly. So and I didn't know if that was honest. Like, are they being nice because I'm new? Are they being nice because, but nice in the way that they're asking things like to train? That's what I mean. Like, in a good way. So yeah, the culture shock of coming to the dojo. It's not that my old dojo had like only patronizing men and all that. It was diverse in that sense as well. Generational differences also. You could tell some of the older men there tended to be more conservative in the ways that they treated women, and younger guys, they didn't care. But uh, anyway, the culture was towards favoring men. So if a young guy was chosen for a presentation or something,
Like
and
a
this happened
demonstration?
like a demonstration, and this happened systematically, they wouldn't say, oh, isn't my like why aren't the women in the dojo being chosen as well to participate in this? So yeah, like, as it's in, like, in real life, some people act consciously and consider gender as a factor, some people don't, and some people, as you very well described, Kathy, they don't act based on prejudice, so they consider the individual as a whole and adapt their actions. That's very Aikido like as well, like to adapt based on what
I
you
think also that the fact that you know, as we said, we were lucky to have a teacher that teaches us all in this way, means that he also can pick from us to be involved in things, because he's trained us to a level that he is well, I hesitate to say that he's satisfied with. That's, you know, I take that back. I take it back. But he's you know, he's our teacher, and he perhaps feels confident in. I don't want to speak for him. Well, we'll get him on at some point, I think. But he has women that he can choose from if he wants to. If for any reason wants people to teach or whatever, it's possible, because he's taught us well. I'm just trying not to dig myself a hole here.
No, but it makes sense. It makes sense, and you see it happening, like the example I gave with having demonstrations with only men participants.
Yeah.
And if no one raised an eyebrow to that until, as the women in the dojo connecting with women from other dojos started raising that concern. Whereas here, as you say, people are trained to a level that they can participate in different things, regardless of what sensei thinks. So yeah, I think we're moving on quite nicely to the next question, actually, which is like how a balanced environment influences your development as a student, our development as students. So we're kind. I don't know if Beth or Elvira, you have any.
There was just one thing I kind of wanted to say on the tail end of what we were just discussing, leading into like a balanced experience. I think it's really nice to see that everyone is kind of given equal opportunity to learn and to take part in different events. I mean, I remember taking part in demonstrations a couple of years after I started, so I was still quite new and quite fresh, and but the chance.
That was Hyper Japan, was it, Beth?
Yeah. I think that there's 2 demonstrations at Hyper Japan. When I was still considered quite young and like new to Aikido. And that was like in itself, it was quite scary because you're put on display, but it was also at the same time, I was one of the few white belts who were there. I was definitely one of the few women who were there.
I think you were the only women, weren't you, Beth?
Yeah.
The first time Paulina was there with me. Time, yes, I was the only girl. So it was a lot of pressure and like, oh, all these young girls in the audience are looking at you, and I'm like,
It's like
nice that you're given a chance. Everyone, regardless of experience, is given a chance to develop and to grow.
Absolutely, if you want it, I think.
Yeah, if you want it.
If you want it, and if you take it seriously, people will take it seriously too.
Yeah, it's really good that you mentioned the Hyper Japan, because I was in that demonstration as well, and I had been in the dojo only for a month and a half, and that's a proof of this thing, like, oh, they're taking me seriously, because sensei said like, oh, you can come to the demonstration, but I've only been here a month and a half. Why do you trust me? Don't trust me. But he said that. I don't remember what he said, but I think that he didn't want to be in demonstrations anymore, and he gave the space to his students to be there. That's what I remember. Yeah, I wanted to mention that only.
So in terms of how do you guys think that? I mean, maybe you don't think it does, but how would you think that a relatively balanced dojo in terms of the day-to-day training? When I say balance, I mean in terms of men to women, age. How do you think that actually affects the development of students?
It's a difficult one.
Beth,
go ahead.
I like it because I think it gives you as an individual to experience a lot of different ways of training. You're not training with people who are basically the same. They're all older than you, or they're all more experienced than you. You have people there who are more experienced and can therefore help you grow. You have people who are maybe less experienced, and then you need to kind of help them as well as them having an opportunity to work on maybe slightly smaller details that you can't always focus on. So I think that kind of environment of having a range of experience, a range of ages, and also different genders and male and female, all that kind of stuff is quite nice to promote growth as a student, because you're getting to train with different people who have different experiences. And
absolutely, you don't get what you're saying is you don't get fixed in one particular way of training.
And you also keep that kind of like beginner's mind. Like with Aikido of London, we train with children, and I find it particularly challenging and really beautiful at the same time, because I'm used to play with someone my age or my height, and then you have to adapt, and you make it work, even adapting to the height. I can see sometimes Louis, which is really tall, with a kid, he has to kneel to do like some technique in Aikido, and I think that's the beauty of learning, and also be able to share and to teach. Is a continuously with that kind of open mind and beginners kind of mentality, and and that's which is, I think it's really valuable, on that stage.
Yeah.
I agree. I tend to underestimate training with children, but then when I go to class and train with children, those are the most demanding because you have to keep your body low, and your ukemi needs to be super 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 light because they're not as strong as you are. So it's I think that the difference between an adult and a child is like an extrapolation of the differences that you might encounter, but the same principle applies. Like you need to try all these different bodies to practice.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
also, like, how you make that child to understand, like sometimes they don't really get, everyone with their own different way approach, and it's just like, try to make it easy, because it's a learning curve for you as well when you actually try to explain in their terminology. Like, sometimes kids, they can be really into it, and sometimes they don't really care. Maybe the parents send them because they're still young, and how you make it fun for them, or for them to understand. Do you know what I mean? I think it's also challenging itself, and we've all been. There's one kid, I can't remember his name, that it just doesn't really care, and it was really, really difficult. I think, maybe we know what we're talking about.
We all know, yeah.
Yeah. And I just put myself into the situation where, okay, he's here now, he's been sent, let's try to make it happen, like, even if he doesn't like and he doesn't care, how do you make it to a point? And I think that's a challenge itself, and that's the beauty, I found as well, the beauty, because you are trying to adapt to yourself to that scenario. And that's one thing I really like about Aikido. You just have that in that moment, and you just forget everything around it, in a way, in a sense.
So there's training with different bodies, but then there's also training with the stuff that comes with that person, isn't there? Because that
individuality,
and it often has a big effect on how that person is moving as well. It's like some people are very, very tense, and they maybe come across as quite kind of easygoing, and but their bodies are not. Their bodies say something different.
True.
And so that's and I think it just touching back on the kind of the variety in the dojo. It's how do you make the technique work on someone who doesn't know how to move and doesn't know how to take ukemi? And if you can make it work on them, then it's working, right?
Yeah,
it's working.
That's true. I'm thinking of this. I think it was before the Christmas seminar, or I don't remember when, that sensei said that you have to take your best ukemi always. I think that he was referring to when people from outside, they come and they might train differently, but you still have to be super engaged. And that's the thing about working with a variety of people, that you have to hone that flexibility to take ukemi with different people.
Absolutely.
And that's something, and that's something that if the dojo doesn't have, let's talk about gender, like if there is not this work on making your body flexible to respond to different situations, then you can end up in a situation where what happens more often, I think, in my opinion, that men don't take women seriously when they're training. So both people end up losing, basically. The woman cannot take either do her technique or take ukemi properly, and the men, well, of course they will get bored if they are not taking the situation seriously. It's like this vicious circle, basically.
I wonder if because we're talking about all these different experiences with men. We've mentioned someone that came to visit us recently. Does anyone have any experiences that they want to share? I mean, when Fran and I spoke about this before, the kind of the topic, what I was hesitant, what I didn't want it to turn into was a big ranting session. But it would be interesting to hear if you guys have any experiences that you want to share, maybe in a bit more detail, of course. Perhaps
keeping it anonymity.
Sorry?
Keeping the anonymity of the
exactly or just more broadly speaking, more generally speaking, like when you've been elsewhere, if how it's been.
For me, I struggle quite a lot to kind of compare our dojo to others, just because I haven't really done a lot of external seminars. The few that I have been on, I've gone with other members from the dojo, so I've always known that there will be people there who, if I feel uncomfortable or something were to go wrong, thank God it never has, but I'm with people who I know and I feel comfortable with. I do think that this idea that there are less girls and boys is definitely seen kind of throughout dojo. I remember when we went to Spain, I wasn't there for very long, but I'm pretty sure I was one of the only female people there. Also one of the few white belts, but that in itself was a very nice experience, training with people from different dojos, and I certainly didn't feel kind of looked down on there. That might have been, again, it was something that we were hosting, or Ismail Hasan Sensei was hosting, and so I had people around me who I was familiar with. But what was interesting is going to Warwick University, where you have a massive student population, and actually for that it was pretty 50-50 in girls boys in terms of
it was, wasn't it? That was with Toko Sensei and Mooney Sensei, I think.
So that was quite nice. Also, then being in an environment with a lot of people my own age, and seeing it being very divided quite equally was quite nice for me, and then also gave me that nice sense of, I picked a good dojo, and yeah, so I was very lucky with my circumstances, in that Aikido of London was the first place I tried, and it was really good for growth. But yeah.
I have traveled a little bit with Aikido in Italy, a couple of seminars, and in Belgium. In terms of like a mix, I mean, obviously there's always like more men, but I've always find in certain places there was like community, almost like groups, that they like to train with each other, and sometimes it was difficult for me to enter, and I find it a little bit discouraging, because I don't think that Aikido should be about that. You know, not all the time. I mean,
do you mean groups stick together?
Yeah.
Groups
Exactly, yeah, because I mean, we travel together rather than mingling with other people. But I think that's the way it should be. They stick together, and I think it was a bit in Italy. I found that initially, but that's one side. But when it comes in terms of quality of training, is that a question you ask, or just more like a broad?
Just any sort of experience that you want to share, really, positive or negative, related to what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I went out and did that experience, but in my little knowledge, even from the very beginning, I was just kind of looking forward to go back and train with my own dojo. And I'm not saying for not because of anything. It's just like it could be just the familiarity of the quality. I got used to it, but I really enjoy the way we train. I don't know why. I can't tell you, but definitely the quality. Rings the bell. But yeah, I mean, it's I find that generally it is different. I'm not going to say anything. It's the quality is different, but it's interesting. I think I should consider everybody to go out there and check for themselves.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think there's something Sensei I always say. That's another thing I always loved. Like just go and look for yourself. And I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah. I was thinking, Fran, about this. We had a conversation not too long ago. You mentioned a question that you put to your old dojo fellow partners, or what's the word? The people you used to train with in Chile, I think. And one of the questions was, what is your ideal senpai? And one of the big things was not to teach while the teacher is teaching. And for me, going out to different dojos, it's been interesting, because generally speaking, although it feels I'm completely immersed in this world, like actually I haven't been training for that long. But I'm lucky in the sense that I've traveled around a lot with training. I've been to different seminars. I've been to different countries, and so I've trained with lots and lots of different people, and have had some very interesting experiences. And of course, when I first started out, I was a beginner, so it's you expect people are going to help you. and sometimes as well, it's useful.
Help too much.
Yes,
No,
and
sorry.
sometimes it can help too much. Sometimes, and this probably goes for, I mean, I'm sure that there are men that can say this as well, that just train. And I know, Fran, you were saying one of the complaints that you had about someone that came to visit recently was like, he wouldn't let you train, right? And and you know, I hesitate to go into too much detail about some of these some experiences that I've had, but at least what I would say is we're going to talk about this, I think, in another episode as well, when we talk about being a white belt, I suppose. Is so I've gone from that stage of going out to seminars as a beginner, and of course I've still got so much to learn, but now I'm Shodan, and yet the experience doesn't necessarily change. I will still have people correcting me who are, I would say, on paper and on paper, my junior. And when I say people, I mean some guy, like some stiff, like just pretty shit guy, to be honest. And why? Why is that? You know, why?
The entitlement to say, I can correct this person.
Yeah, and often it's like, well, no, you're wrong. You know, I can think of one time I was at a seminar, I think it was last year, and there was a guy who was training. He was I mean, I don't know what grade he was. I don't care really, but he was not wearing a hakama. He was white belt. You take one look at him and you know this guy isn't really very good, you know, or he hasn't been training long, whatever. And so I'm training with him, and I don't know if it was maybe it was jealousy. I don't know, because I was called through Kemi by the person that was leading the seminar. I don't know what it was, but he kept. We were doing something from Yokomen, and he kept coming in on the wrong side. Okay, so leaving himself completely open. He kept striking on the wrong side every time. And I kept saying to him, other side. And eventually he goes to me, you know what? Your ukemi is very good, but actually the uke decides which side to strike. And I thought, okay. And, you know, it's like in hindsight, there were several things I could have done. I thought in hindsight, I thought, well, maybe I can make my point by, like, considering he's left himself wide open, I just punch him in the stomach when he strikes. And okay, so the uke decides, but you've decided wrong. Okay. or the other thing I could have, I don't know, or I could have taken the time to explain to him, well, this is the reason why you should come in on this side. But did I do that? No, I just got really, really pissed off, and then they clapped, and it was, and you know, so that was just one of, I would say, saved by the clap, and that was one of, I would say, many experiences like that, unfortunately, I've had.
I think kind of building on from that, I think maybe you guys will have different experiences and will disagree. I'm myself quite a timid person. I don't really like putting myself out there, but I felt as my Aikido has progressed, I've needed to put myself out there to kind of almost stand up for myself in a way. I think the first time I noticed that was one of the first seminars that I did. It was the Ismail Sensei in Notting Hill.
Sorry.
Which one?
The seminar in Notting Hill.
Oh, with Donovan White Sensei.
Donovan White, sorry.
Yeah,
Donovan White, yeah.
Donovan White Sensei. And I remember going, and at the beginning I was at the back and I was training with white belts. And at one point I did train with a woman who was in Hakama, and there was kind of nothing. I was getting no energy, nothing at all. And then I ended up training with Cathy, and immediately the energy was different. That might have been through just familiarity. But kind of she said, Beth, we need to go down to the other end of the room where kind of the seniors were training. And I was like, yeah, okay, fair enough, let's do it.
I remember
and
that.
we kind of gradually made our way over. And
Did we gradually? I seem to remember like we ran or something.
the next session we kind of ran up.
It was that, and then ran to the other side.
And infinitely my experience got a lot better because I think being there with seniors who in general actually treated me, I think, no different to anyone else. But it was great because I was able to take a kemi from Donovan Sensei, and but it was definitely like I had to take that first step to show that I was able to do that. And I think even when we've had guests come over and train with us, it's definitely been like, no, I can take care of myself and I am capable. So I was wondering, have you guys also felt that experience at any point?
That's very interesting because it also talks about like the way that dojos are organized have an influence on the chances you get to train with other people. So there are dojos that are very hierarchical, where on one side of the tatami you will have the more senior people,
Yeah.
and the other side the beginners, or the way they sit when the class starts.
Yeah.
And well, I think that the culture is in our dojo to change all the time who you're training with. There's no regions of the mat reserved for anyone. And that was also something that changed for me. And it's interesting that that component, that's part of etiquette, of probably the traditional etiquette that dojos have in general, has an influence on how differences appear in the training as well. It's very interesting.
I had actually, that just now brings me a memory when I went to see Tada Sensei in Italy. There was that kind of attitude. There's no one else.
Tada Sensei?
Yeah, yeah, one of the biggest seminar. They were all pre-selected, all other like senseis of the local dojos in Italy. They were taking ukemi for sensei for Okada. No one else was there. There was that kind of hierarchy, and I didn't really enjoy it. And I didn't think that is Aikido. So literally, like you say, there are some dojo. I have never really trained fully in Italy, but it seems that was the thing. There was no way that you can just like, take a kemi for Tada, because there was a line of other teachers that they were taking kemi for them. And that's really not, and what you're saying, Beth, just on that connection, is like, initially, it's also a little bit down to the person. Initially, when I was going to seminar, I was like that a little bit, be on the side. But now I've learned that, you need to stand up for yourself and just go on the front and just mingle. And that happened when I went in Belgium a few years later, and I happened to know that Miyamoto just called me for uke, because I had the courage, that to stand out there. And I think this is something I've learned through Aikido. Yeah, and that's something I definitely learned through my training, and that's Aikido really helped me in that kind of a sense, that power, that endurance, that stand up for myself. That vulnerability that we take on the tatami every time we train. That really helped me in a lot of things outside as well.
So actually, I'm just thinking that leads us on quite nicely to, we had another question or another topic we wanted to discuss, which was just to kind of find out from each of you, why do you train? What drives you? What do you love about the training? So Elvira, you've just been talking about your growth. The way that it's helped you to grow. Did you want to talk a little bit more about that? Why do you train? Why do you train, Elvira?
Why do I train? I love it. I love training. The first thing is it's the supportive community I've found through Aikido. I'm a very active person. I've done a lot of activities, but the group, the community I found in Aikido, I haven't found elsewhere. And that's one. Then they give me power, security, it's made me grow. But I think one of the major really think, that connection that we have with as a uke and nage, but also as a general, what I like is that uncertainty. When you are on the tatami, you leave everything behind. You are there, and you don't think about any other issue outside. Sometimes at the beginning you bring it with you, but once you start training, start taking ukemi, everything blurs. Just like, it's me, I'm there. Like whatever happens, I don't focus on anything else. And sometimes maybe too much. I dream too much as well. That's me. But that's part of it. I love it. It's just like, I don't know the word in English. It's like it's like not a habit, it's an addiction. A good addiction. There are many other reasons, but I wanna, that's one the major one that drives me. It's that connection, and that's but with the community, and I've made lots of good friends through Aikido. Anyone
like us? Beth, what about you?
Well, it's interesting because I think the main reason I started was because I wanted to learn some form of self-defense and get a bit more confident. Kind of, 16-year-old in Camden is not always the best place to be. But
depends what you're into, I guess.
Yeah. But definitely for sure, it's the fact that there is always something to work on. It's you will always be able to grow and develop. It's definitely been something that stuck with me, and also the lack of competition for me was a big thing. I had done sports competitively, and it kind of ruined it for me. I was always focused on.
If I just jump in, the lack of formal competition, right?
Yeah, formal.
Because competition, I think that's something we'll come to in another. Because I think that there's competition is present in Aikido, but it's not in the sort of sports sense. Sorry, and go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, so it's like you're training for you and to develop for you rather than for some external thing. And like Elvira said, the community we have in our dojo is wonderful, which is why I've kept going, and definitely feels like a little family that I have at the dojo, which has been great for, like I said, myself growth and development. And it's a nice chance for your brain to switch off and your mind to just think about something completely different. Rather than thinking about the stress of uni, I could think, oh, got to make sure I move, otherwise I'm going to break my elbow. It is a nice chance for your brain to switch off.
I don't know if you find out, just very quickly, it just reminds me, like, I always find it's like a kind of a meditative state, like you are a kind of an active meditation when you do Aikido. You have to be there, present, but at the same time try to be present, but also to let it go. I mean, it's just I can't express it with words, but I find it's like a meditative, kind of a meditation, in movement.
It's been referred to before, I think, as moving Zen.
Yeah, I mean, I do find Aikido, and I mean, working out in general, quite therapeutic.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think it's a good chance.
That's interesting. Once you get the very basics, because at the beginning it's very stressful, I think. For me,
what about you, Fran?
For me, I started Aikido because as you might notice when you train with me, I tend to think a lot.
Really?
So I saw in Aikido the perfect opportunity where I had to overcome my fear of making mistakes. I was always I think I am a person who I don't know, I like to be prepared for things, and I don't know, and I don't like. Well, I don't think anyone likes it, but I really care a lot when I make a mistake in public, and then I suffer in silence for a week. But in Aikido, you can't get around that. Like, you have to suffer in public from the beginning, so that you stop suffering in public at one point, or you suffer in public, but other people don't notice that much. I don't, if you know what I mean. Like when you're starting to do
part
training,
of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly. And you have to do it because what I in my situation was that I was becoming kind of paralyzed. I didn't dare to do many things, and in Aikido,
So do you mean outside of the dojo?
Outside of the dojo, like
In life.
In life. So this was like the physical means basically to get to force myself to try to do kemi, a forward roll. When I was little, I couldn't do handstands or stuff like that little girls do all the time because I was scared. And in Aikido, you don't have a choice. If you don't learn that, then you can't progress. And I really wanted to progress. So it was like that challenge that kept me, that when I started feeling that my body could do things that I didn't know I could do, that was when I got really hooked. And that's why I trained.
And
like
now you can do more and more, can't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And feel good doing it as well, because it's when you're unlocking the next stage, it's painful or you feel very stiff, and then when it's completely unlocked, okay, and then you have another stage to unlock, and it never ends.
Would you
But
say,
it's good.
would you
Definitely.
say, I hope you don't mind me sharing, Fran, that you had a semi-serious shoulder injury recently? Would you say that was a stage then that you unlocked? Because I feel just from just my observation is that was quite a scary thing that happened. You had a bad injury, but somehow you've come back and you've just gone whoosh, and something seems to have unlocked for you. And I think, and maybe that's again, there's so much to discuss, and we did talk about having an episode about fear, and perhaps injury can come into that as well. But that hasn't put you off, has it? And you did,
True.
and as you say, or you're somebody that you didn't like to make mistakes, or you didn't like to sort of embarrass yourself or whatever. But it's amazing how that hasn't put you off, or maybe
Yeah,
it did for a while. But
it did. I was frustrated, but it helped me. It gave me some time to think, calmly, like not to think without the risk of being hit, as when I was training. So I had the. I try. I think about my how I don't know what kind of student I am. That's what I thought about when I was recovering from the injury, and I felt that I had to trust myself more, because that injury, it was an accident, but I'm not saying that I could have taken a safer chemi or anything. It was an accident, but it I don't know. It really made me think of of fear, yeah, of
But
trying to.
I think what
It
I've
made me
noticed with it,
acknowledge all that's at stake when you're taking ukemi, and how I could take a little bit better ukemi, or in a way that I didn't feel that I was about to lose my life. Uh, like I
I
thought
think
about that.
in high school, I think you said an interesting thing about the reflection. I think injury, I mean, it's not like we want them, but it's really a learning tool because it makes you reflect and understand, and then like you kind of progress from that. I think we all had a minor or bigger injury in martial arts, especially in Aikido, and I think that interestingly what you said is very, very true for many people about injuries and like that reflection, that the moment you stop and while you're intensively training for a while, that really sets you back, and then you have that kind of always a moment like wow, and you progress. I think you do, and that happens
And
for me typically. I don't know about you
I
as
think what's
well.
quite nice as well is that it's injury is, whilst obviously it's something that should be avoided. Something that comes with Aikido and comes with injury is the fact that you learn your body and how your body works. Is this twinge because it's slightly uncomfortable, or is it twinging because something's really wrong? And it's something that Sensei often says is, is it just slightly uncomfortable and you don't want to continue, or is it really, really actually quite painful? And I think putting that on your students also generates that self-discipline that actually it's uncomfortable.
responsibility for yourself, isn't it? It's
Exactly. Yeah.
learning to take responsibility for yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's two ways. It's protecting yourself, but also help
So
making the technique work. You know what sometimes he says, like being on the edge but not about to die, and that's the thing that I couldn't regulate before the injury. I was always holding back, holding back, holding back, holding back, and yeah. So
Nice.
weirdly, the injury kind of unlocked that bit.
Interesting.
Cathy, why do you train Aikido?
Me, why do I train? It was so thinking about when I first started. I remember thinking like, oh, I just want something that I can do on a Saturday morning, once or twice a week, and it wasn't like, and I've spoken about this before somewhere. I don't know, maybe I wrote about it or something, that it wasn't something that I turned up and went, oh, I love this. I'm going to do this forever. It was probably quite comparable to an addiction in the sense that, like, you don't realize you've got a problem until you're right in it.
Until you have.
Until there's no going back, you know. And for me, it was like, I think initially I bought this 10-class pass, right? Because, you know, at our dojo, you can do a monthly fee or a 10-class pass. And I thought, well, financially for me, because I'm going to be going just once or twice a week, it makes sense to have the 10-class pass. And I think I used the 10-class pass in like 2 weeks or something like that, or 2.5 weeks, and was like, oh, crap, okay. So it was some kind of addiction, I think. And when I think about why, I think, I guess it's a few things. I practice Zazen as well, and it's I didn't think about this so much at the time. It's kind of a revelation I've had recently, is how actually Aikido and my Aikido practice, and Iaido as well. I should say actually most of us do Iaido as well. How my Iaido and Aikido and Zazen practice seems to have kind of gone hand in hand. And so there are some things that I have been struggling with in my Zazen, which I managed to access or something in Aikido that, and I kind of thought, oh, that's it. And so there's that. And I think another thing is, like, really, if I really think about it, I didn't introduce myself too fully, but actually one of the things one of the obvious things about me is that I'm actually half Japanese, half English, half Japanese. My mum is Japanese, and I do think that there's something about feeling like I've tapped into a side of myself which I maybe have disconnected with over the years. Perhaps as I've gotten older, I've become more and more separated from that side of myself in a way, you know. But that's who I am, actually, and I'll never lose that. But I think that there's something about Aikido that, and especially in the sense that, you know, a sensei runs the dojo in a certain way, in his way, but there are some traditional aspects of it, and it's a Japanese art, and there are some things about it and about the dojo that are very, very Japanese, and I think that also somehow has clicked with me. And yeah, I don't know, and I just love it. God, it's so good.
You know, you start off once a week, and then twice a week. You start getting better for the classes, and the next thing you know, you're doing it 5 times a week, and you have no patience.
yeah, the things we do. But so that's what drives me. And of course, it's great that, you know, all of that has led to here, and we're all here talking to each other and doing this thing and talking about something that we really care about, and it's great. So
maybe people who listen to this will think that these guys are crazy, but I hope not.
Well, are they wrong though, Fran?
That's true.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, I think this is probably a good point to wrap up. So maybe we'll see you guys again on another episode. So thank you so much.
You've been listening to Maai Perspective, where women talk Budo.